prior to the 1980s, we had black businesses in Acres Homes, restaurants, doctor's offices, stores. We had pharmacy. Mr. Hopkins had a pharmacy. I mean, you really didn't have to leave Acres Homes if you didn't want to. Washaterias. I mean, you really didn't have to leave Acres Home if you didn't want to. And somehow, it didn't matter how much money you made. It didn't matter. You know, we weren't divided by our socioeconomic status. That you had the doctors living there, just like you had the electrician living there, just like you had the pastors living there. Everybody lived in the vicinity of where they, you know, where we all subsisted. And coming into the 80s, when the crack epidemic hit, a lot of our young men got caught up in that game. And it didn't take off immediately in Acres Homes. But eventually, what happened was the money got good and black people started to see that they could, you know, make money, that they could afford more things if they sold these drugs, and that there were so many people getting addicted to it, the money was just like water. And so enterprising young brothers who chose not to go to college, who chose this lifestyle, hustling over, you know, being educated, they started comprising more and more and more of our community, because there were poor families who got in as the whole family, you know, and eventually as that money starts to grow and grow and grow, then the system came down on it, because now here you have black people handling large sums of money, which was unheard of for a long time, you know. It hadn't been since early 70s, late 60s that, you know, Black Wall Street basically, you know, before it was destroyed in 1921, you know, Black Wall Street, I guess, was the closest we got to actually handling money on that level, you know, where everybody was eating, you know. And so, you know, here it is again, the opportunity to bring back, you know, money. So they had to do something, because it was going to actually collapse the system that we were in at the time, because black people weren't going to be on the bottom. We weren't going to be on the bottom. And if it had continued, we were actually going to be on the top, because there was a lot of money going through the neighborhood. So George Bush Sr. made a visit to one of the places where most of the crack dealers were hanging out at Carver Park. He came there in the early 90s, and he came there with the intent of getting rid of the crack addictions and getting rid of the crack epidemic that was spreading across neighborhoods. And so when he came, you know, the city started doubling down on, you know, black neighborhoods, and you got the DEA involved, you got the feds involved, and basically in a 30-year span, we were pretty much wiped out in the incarceration rate. Acres Homes actually became a feeder to the penal system in Texas. I mean, it's a lot of brothers that went to jail and went to the penitentiary for long periods of time for trafficking drugs and murder, and, you know, drug addicts for burglary and, you know, racketeering. I mean, they started getting charged and hit with long prison terms. And what that did to our community and black communities like ours is, the first thing it took away were the promise of next generations, because there were no men there to make babies to pass on to. The other thing was the women, you know, were being forced to get jobs and leave the babies, and then what you have are children who were growing up in single family motherless homes throughout the day. So the school systems at the same time were integrating, you know, and black teachers had a lot more tolerance and understanding of what our communities were going through than white teachers or other cultures did. And they were, then the state of Texas developed a zero tolerance, where if you act up, they just basically take action against you. And so then that weighed heavy on education. So we had so many pressures bearing down on a community like ours until, you know, families start to move away. They didn't want to live in Acres Home because of the crack, the drugs, the reputation. Nobody wanted to stay. So, you know, it just kind of started that free fall, and we never really recovered from that. We never really did. We lost a lot of land in Acres Home because of the succession. There was no one to succeed. When Grandma died, no one wanted the land. It just kind of went the way of tax lien, and nobody really wanted to live in Acres Home, so that land sat, you know, for a long time. Now that there's new interest in the land, you know, there's a land grab going on. There's a, you know, people who are wanting to buy this land and you know, make investments here. The thing is, though, if this goes the way we know it goes, we lose our heritage in the process of acquiring new tenants. You know, you get people who don't think like you, who don't respect where you came from, and we start to look like other black communities that have other cultures that come in. They don't really respect that struggle. They don't really respect, you know, the heritage, the identity. They don't want it, and they don't want to be affiliated with it. So we're fighting to keep that from happening here. And we just encourage other people to join the fight.